the wage gap?
The Honourable Jerry Brownlee.
No, Mr Speaker, and it won't matter how often David Parker likes to do is sitting in the back of the car screaming, when will we get there, Act. The fact is the government does have an agenda. We have tax reform, we have investment in infrastructure, roads and ultra-fast broadband, research and development package, reform of the labour market, electricity market reform, skills and education, cutting red tape and regulation,
Order. I imagine the point of order being raised by Catherine Delahunty is that she cannot hear. Now, I say to the House that is totally unreasonable. The member asked, the member asking the question challenged whether or not the government had a credible plan to achieve the closure of the gap. As the minister answering the question sought to outline the government's plan in that regard, I couldn't hear what he was saying. Now, if the member asked such a question about a credible plan, we ought to hear the answer about a credible plan. I invite the Honourable Jerry Brownlee to carry on with that answer.
Thank you, Mr Speaker. The government does have a credible plan. It involves a number of initiatives which include tax reform, investment in broadband and infrastructure, like roads as well, increased research and development package, reform of the labour market, the electricity market reform, skills and education, the announcement this week of the 9 academies, Mr Speaker, the cutting of red tape and regulation, an ongoing program of that, the trade agreements that Mr Grosser is negotiating throughout the world, the reform of the RMA, which has already had some effect in the economy, the transition to the International Growth Fund for New Zealand Trade and Enterprise, focusing all of government's resources on frontline services, strengthening the science system with the arrangements he made. Well, Mr Speaker, you invited me to outline it. It is extensive. It's just a shame Mr Parker doesn't know more about it.
The Honourable David Parker.
If it's so obvious, why can't the minister see what's obvious to many, including New Zealand's largest newspaper, the New Zealand Herald, when it said of the government's economic performance in a recent editorial, and again I quote, "When relatively little is done, relatively little happens, things can even go backwards."
Honourable Jerry Brownlee.
Well, Mr Speaker, the New Zealand Herald is well known for having various editorial opinions at various times.
Question number 9, Dr Jackie Blue.